I wanted to try to make a really nice chickpea curry, something that tastes really meaty and creamy and substantial. And rather than try and fail to recreate anybody's traditional dish, I gave myself license to do whatever I want. It turned out vegan, incidentally, and you could certainly do it with like 4 cans of chickpeas drained and rinsed, but it's kind of amazing how much better the dried ones are, if you've got the time. 1 pound, 454 grams of any kind of chickpea you like into a big bowl, and I will soak them overnight in plenty of water. They're going to double in size. So just plain water on top there. You could use salt at this stage. It'll make them a hair firmer on the inside. The baking soda trick is really only good for making hummus, I think. It gets them too soft. Here they are the next day, looking all swole. I will discard the soak liquid. I find that chickpeas, more so than other beans, absolutely wreck my system unless I purge as many oligosaccharides and other indigestible things as possible. Rinse and drain, just like washing rice. Get a big pot, dump in the beans. Yes, chickpeas are beans, so are sweet peas. And again, I'll cover them with more than enough water to keep them covered while they swell. I'm using filtered water. I have pretty hard water, lots of minerals, and that can slow down cooking, but it's not a big deal either way. What would take agonizingly long would be cooking them in my sauce instead of in plain water. My sauce is going to be acidic. Low pH makes beans cook very slowly. Bring this up to a boil. Giving dry beans at least some time at a full boil can probably help deactivate more of their lectins, which can definitely mess you up. Now I'll reduce to a spirited simmer. That just helps them cook a little more evenly than the full boil. And salt. Salt at this stage can slow their cooking a bit and firm up their texture, but there's a flavor benefit to be gained, so some salt. Cover, and those should be sufficiently pre-cooked in about an hour. Meanwhile, I'll toast my spices in a dry pan. I've got some green cardamom, black cardamom, fenugreek seeds, cumin seeds, black peppercorns. I'm just improvising. I have like a kit of South Asian whole spices that I keep around to play with. I don't cook this kind of food very often, so it behooves me to use whole spices because they basically last forever. But you could definitely use any pre-ground, pre-mixed curry powder or masala that you like. When I can smell them toasting, I will take them off the heat and into my coffee grinder. Oh, and I wanted some coriander seed too, but I was out and they only had pre-ground at the store. I used to worry that my spices would affect the taste of my coffee in here, but it never happens, even though I kind of wish it would sometimes. I'll get some oil heating in that very wide pan while I peel and chop an onion. I don't care if I do a pretty job on any of my veg cutting today because I'm going to pass this whole sauce through a sieve later. Onion in, and I'll stir that every now and then as I chop up my peppers. I'll fillet those sides of bell pepper off of the fibrous core. Very nice. Could that work for a jalapeno if you don't want the heat found in the ribs? Meh, kinda. Again, sloppily chop that up, and in it goes with the onion, which is already turning brown. I'm on pretty high heat here, intentionally. Peel and chop a little garlic, stir that in, and while it goes, I'll prep like a pound of tomatillos. You could use all tomatoes, but I'm using a mixture of tomatoes and tomatillos today. The tomatillos perform a similar function in the sauce without reminding me of Italian food so much. Hack those indiscriminately just to hasten their cooking. Stuff over here is browning pretty fast, and that's good. As someone who also cooks meat, I kind of forget sometimes that this is my chance to get dark roasted flavor into a meatless dish. The onions and peppers I want to get looking really brown before I start putting in more watery stuff like the tomatillos. I can use their water to deglaze the pan a bit before anything burns. And again, I'll get that really cooked down and brown before I introduce the next watery thing, which will be a 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes and their liquid, like 800 grams. Deglaze with that before anything burns, and I'll use my spoon to just smoosh the tomatoes up and get them cooking a little faster. Now I'll put in my spices, probably 3 or 4 tablespoons of masala for this much food. I'm making enough to freeze. And then, because it makes almost everything better, some white wine, highly optional. If you care about avoiding animal products, I probably don't need to tell you that lots of wine is made with egg albumin or other animal proteins used as a clarifying agent. There's legit vegan wine on the market, just as there are legit vegan dietary supplements on the market, like the ones from Ritual, the sponsor of this video. One of the reasons I'm happy to work with Ritual is they are, I think, far more upfront than their competitors about the fact that most people in the developed world probably get most of their essential nutrients just fine from food. Something like a Ritual multivitamin is there for you if you have specific reasons to think you might need more. I like that Ritual's algae-derived omega-3s in here don't give me any disgusting fish taste in my mouth. Ritual makes protein powders now too, free of nearly anything anyone could be concerned about, like dairy, gluten, all of that. Get 20% off your first month of Ritual supplements with my link in the description, ritual.com/Adam20. Use my code Adam20, save 20%. Thank you, Ritual. Alrighty, the goal with this sauce is not to really reduce out a ton of water. It's already quite dry. The goal is to develop flavor and to break down the plant tissues such that we can squeeze more out of them when we pass this through a sieve. So I might even add more wine or water to this as it cooks, just to give it more time to cook before it gets too thick and burns. Let's check the chickpeas, fish one out of there, and give it a taste. That's just about done, which is right where I want it. I want to cook these the rest of the way in the sauce. Again, I've been finding that my digestion is better these days if I discard the cooking liquid, and that really isn't aquafaba anyway. The useful chickpea liquid that you get out of a can is much more concentrated. Those can just hang out until I'm ready for them. Let's get some rice going. I would do about half a cup or 100 grams of basmati per person. That's plenty of rice. And I'm just washing it and draining repeatedly to get off the free starch coat. I want fluffy rice today. And today let's go with the old knuckle method for measuring the water. I like this because it gets no measuring vessel dirty. Index fingertip to the surface of the rice, get in enough water to come up to the crease behind your first knuckle. Hardly precise, but good enough for the billion people on this planet who use that trick all the time. I'll throw in a big pinch of salt, and this is my new favorite thing. Put some whole mustard seeds in with the rice. They rehydrate in the same time as the rice, and then they have this delicious pop between your teeth when you eat them. Give it one last stir, turn on the heat, cover, bring to a boil. And then what I usually do these days is take the heat all the way down low. That's enough heat to finish cooking the rice for the 15 more minutes or so that it needs, and then I won't even worry about turning the heat off. The pot just becomes a warmer until I'm ready for rice. The sauce has been cooking for about an hour. It's looking mushy, which is good. It's ready to pass. That same bowl that I already got dirty, sieve in and dump in the sauce. Take a wooden spoon and grind. Swirl around, pushing hard onto the sieve. And it'll seem like nothing is happening at first, but keep going. You don't have to do this at all if you don't want. It'd probably be healthier to just leave all of this good fiber in the food, but I'm going for a really nice chickpea dinner today, and this is going to make for a really velvety sauce. Make sure to scrape the stuff off the bottom of the sieve. In that goes with the mostly cooked chickpeas, and it might not seem like quite enough liquid, but more will be provided by this pound of green beans. Yeah, it's technically beans on beans, but I think that chickpeas and green beans are an underrated combination. These will provide the freshness and the crunch that the peas lack. I'm just cutting them into fourths or fifths. In they go, and they'll release a lot of water as they soften. Speaking of soft, coconut cream. You could use a can of coconut milk. It's basically the same product, except it has a little less of the white coconut fat relative to the clear coconut water. That's one 14-ounce 400 ml can in there. I have another one that I might put in, and this is super optional, but especially if you don't eat any animals, you gotta get some yeast extract in your life. 2 OXO meat-free imitation beef cubes, which are basically just yeast extract and salt. You might have to order these or a similar product on the internet, but it is so worth it. I have a whole video in the description about how they make yeast extract and why it's awesome. It'll make this dish taste really meaty and substantial. Just let those dissolve and everything can simmer until perfectly tender. My rice is done with that awesome mustard seed caviar on top. I'll fluff that with a fork before it sets up too solid. Knuckle trick did just fine. Green beans went in like 15 minutes ago, and by the time this cools to eating temperature, it might be a little bit too thick, so I'll loosen with more wine. Water would be fine. Give a green bean a taste. By the time I actually get this on the table, they'll be perfect. And I think I'll do half of my remaining can of coconut cream, though you could certainly go all in. Coconut cream can go in at the very end to taste. It does not change very much during cooking the way that dairy cream does. This needs more salt. The salt in the stock cubes was not enough. And I'm going to do a little handful of sugar because I'm a grown man and I can do what I want. Stir that up and then we'll give it one more taste, this time with some chickpeas. I want to see if the sauce is sufficiently seasoning the chickpeas, and now we need a hair more salt, but otherwise we're good. Get some rice on the plate, and I'm going to have my cilantro on the side today, coriander leaves, as they'd say in South Asia, and on goes those beautiful chickpeas. Something to remember when cooking dried chickpeas is they will firm up a bit as they cool to eating temperature, so I try to get them feeling a little too soft in the pot. And then, for the sake of heterogeneity, I've got some of this gorgeous Kashmiri chili powder on the side. Cayenne would be fine instead. This way, everyone gets to have exactly the heat level they desire, and it makes it so each bite has a little variability. A stew comprised of very small pieces can be a little too homogeneous, I think. Luscious, creamy, spicy, meaty, fresh, toothsome. This really checks a lot of boxes, and it'll be almost as good frozen and then thawed. We've probably got enough for at least 10 dinner-sized portions, and I will be happy to have them when the next weeknight comes around.